Does it sound okay now?
Okay. Yes, sounds fine.
Sounds fine.
This is Jason and Greg. Greg and Jason, who are we?
Hello, and welcome to Jason and Greg Live, the last debate.
It's the final debate.
The final 2020 presidential debate. This is it.
This is it.
I am Jason. That's Greg. Greg, how are you feeling tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. I'm a little concerned. Like I don't know what's going to happen in this debate again. Like last time, I really think there's anything can happen. It's going to be a fun one to watch. I think there's a lot of new stuff coming out with the Hunter Biden stories, and Trump's probably going to touch on that. I also think that he's got to do better about not interrupting the moderators and stuff if he wants it to not look too aggressive. I think that's a strategy he's got to work on tonight.
Yeah, we all can agree, I think, that the last debate was a hot mess. No one thought it was a good debate. It was probably by far one of the worst ones I've seen. I got into this in 2008 with the with Obama versus McCain. This was my introduction to politics in general and at a large scale. And those debates were really fun to watch as a group with friends. And last week's debate, or last month's, whenever that was, time is irrelevant now.
Seems like it is last week, but
quite a bunch of nonsense. So yeah, that's about that.
I feel like these lights behind me are way too red.
Also, could you point your camera down a little bit? I'm a little tall. You're a little low. Just being honest. Just being honest. There you go. Oh, now you're a little tall. No, that's good. That's
too
good.
tall.
That's good. No,
if I sit up, then
that's just.
But I slouch, so that's.
We're good. We're good. Hope everyone's doing well. Kind of a last minute decision to go live, but
Trying to get the lights right so they look right on my face. That's so orangey. I'm gonna adjust my lights. Doing it live.
I'm thinking about doing that live as well, because
I'm doing this live, guys.
I want to set my camera to. Oh, he's left. Maybe I should leave. Let's see. Let's check in with what's happening. Nothing's happening. They're talking.
I think this is this too bright? Or is this better?
Let me pull it. Let me make it bigger. Now you're a little off centered.
I mean, I didn't sit in the same position.
That's a little bright. Can't you turn? What lights are you using? Your lights?
Yeah.
Just turn them down. Turn the dials down. Make them less powerful.
I do, and it gets.
There you go.
That's the lowest it goes right there. That's not bad. There, that's better.
That's good. Now I want to be blue. What are you doing?
You can be blue. I can be red.
I can turn it to blue, but then.
I mean, if you're blue, what does it make? Does that make you a Democrat?
I'll be red then. But look at my nose.
I mean, I'm not being blue for that.
Look at my nose.
For any particular reason.
The color, the camera readjusts and doesn't look good. That's all I gotta say. I can put on some nice scenes.
Put the scenes on, All right, so we got 10 minutes till they start.
We got 10 minutes.
Not that it much matters.
No. Okay, I mean, so I'm really looking for
one person watching our stream. There's 300.
It's me.
9,
no, we got two now. We got two now. Is it you and me?
Yeah, it's us.
You and me. It's us. Listen, I post on Facebook. Did you post on Facebook as well? Did I not?
I did.
Okay, should I? I see it. Dude, I want to see some people up in the chat. Okay, if I don't see some people up in the chat, things are gonna. Okay, how can I adjust my Logitech camera from auto? Uh-oh, that's not it. Video. Okay, go to settings. Okay, whatever. Let me add a filter to it, maybe. Maybe it's auto in See, I'm gonna have to adjust that each time. I don't think so. I'll leave it.
To me, you got really pixelated. I don't know.
I am high quality right now.
I think you're fine though.
I'm great.
So I don't remember if you gave your analysis, but what do you think is going to happen?
There's lots gonna happen. Okay, lots is gonna happen. That's my prediction.
We know that. We know that much.
Trump, I would hope, is more prepared in a way that showcases just how bad of a candidate that that Biden is, and not just himself, but he's representative of the entire Democratic Party, which is fully out of their minds right now. They have.
I mean, just look at Pelosi for 2 seconds, and you see that she's gone crazy over the last 4 years.
I don't know what's going on. So all I hope for is entertainment, but I also hope that people realize what's actually going on.
Yeah,
because
I think
it's quite simple. You can look at it's quite simple. You want a government that tries to dictate everything you do and regulate companies out of business and raise their taxes to increase their revenue. Do you want them to try to control what kind of car you have, or what you can say online, as a big topic right now? Or do you want to take the country in a direction of personal freedom and choice and economic growth that we've seen until the Democratic run states shut everything down? So I don't know. I just hope that he can be more prepared and really bring the issues to the front.
Yeah, that's what we can hope for. If we can see, a taste of what we saw with Pence at the vice presidential debate, I think we'll have a good debate. This is the first presidential debate I think I've watched that I wouldn't be surprised if punches were thrown. But I think the only reason they wouldn't be is maybe coronavirus reasons. But that I could totally see that happening. And this is the first time I think I could say that about a presidential debate. It started to get there in 2016, but I don't think it ever got to the point where people were that fired up about it.
I'm nervous. Like I can't wait to see how this goes, because all the polls can say one thing, sure, and you have an idea of the amount of people who are going to be brought to the polls to vote, who are angry at Trump for whatever reason. But then you just have to you have no idea how many people will go and vote because they're angry at the Democrats. You have no idea what the ratio is of people who are. It's all about.
I think there's a lot about it's going to be the independent voters too is going to be a big factor, because it's going to, if anything, it's going to be close based on the polls. We know that, like, if the polls are any bit like they were in 2016, it's going to be a close election again. But if that happens, I think you've got the independent voters that are going to be the deciding factor. And are they more leaning towards Republican after looking at what the Democrats have done for the last 3-4 years, or are they leaning towards Democrats because they think Trump's done a bad job for some reason, or they're following the media? That's the question that remains to be seen. And I don't think we'll know that till after Election Day, possibly even further out than that.
Yeah, which is the stressful part of it all.
Who knows how long it's going to take?
Now,
I mean, you remember Bush Gore, and that took, I don't know how long that was, but like
December,
maybe a month or two. Like now you've got this potential to be even longer than that. I mean, but the thing is, don't they have to make a decision before January? I mean, at some point, the president has to switch over. They've got to decide. So who rules during that time?
I don't want to think about it.
Is it Pelosi that comes? Like, I don't even know who takes over at that point. Somebody takes over.
Yeah, probably.
If they don't have a president, basically, to
McConnell.
decide it, I think. Would he be the one?
Isn't
I don't
McConnell
know.
third in line? Isn't it Speaker of the House? Yeah, it's Speaker of the House.
Maybe, yeah.
Which is McConnell.
And then if it's something
Or
happens
no,
to
is that
him, then it'd be Pelosi.
Listen,
I-
Senate majority.
No,
He's the
it's
Senate majority.
Pelosi's.
It is Pelosi. It is.
Yeah, it's
Senate-
Pelosi.
yeah. He's the Senate majority leader, which is
They got Chris Christie on right now. What's he saying? I wonder.
No. Wait. He is speaking. Is this the right stream? We're not watching last month's debate, are we?
Chris
No, I
Christie
think-
says he's looking at the president's demeanor. That's a good point.
Why is he on? Chris Christie.
That's what we said.
I'm just as confused. Okay. So here we are.
I love how Chris Christie says I have 2 points, and then he made 1 point, and then did.
Oh, I'm
and
not
he
listening.
didn't make a second point. I listened briefly.
Why can't I hear it?
On the other side of the
There it
stage is not in a position of winning. So ignore him, talk to the American people, be empathetic, and mostly
Is her
be
mic off?
clear and be strong. That's what people want to
Okay,
see
no,
right
it's
now.
fixed a little bit.
No, it's working.
I want to see if Donald Trump can put Joe Biden.
Right.
on
If you guys
his
watched us
heels
last time
about
and you didn't
what is
and
really the
you didn't pay attention,
legacy of
watch
the
the
Democratic Party.
tickers down at the bottom.
Independents and some Republicans
Some good
where
actual
the
real
choices
quotes
start.
from Kamala Harris and
If
Joe
you want
Biden.
them to vote for him,
There
Yeah.
might be
those are the
one or two in
choices
there.
that I wanna see.
Well, there's some from Trump. I don't know if we left any other ones in there, but
No,
good
it's
quotes
all
in there.
Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, and
these are all actual things they've said.
yes, they're all true.
Do we have any pins?
No,
I don't
I
think
have
we had
no.
any Pence.
I have no Pence.
Maybe because Pence just doesn't seem
You
to
know,
say dumb
Pence
things.
had his moment. The last debate, great debate, excellent debate. Presidential debate, excellent stuff.
Yeah.
We can hope tonight is a repeat of something like that, but with the debate moderator being who she is, I doubt it.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun one. We were up to 4 viewerships and now we're down to 2. So we are killing the content here.
Absolutely. You know what it is?
It's Thursday night football.
No, it's big tech. It's big tech.
Censoring us?
Oh,
They already watched this for 2 seconds.
wait, we got
and-
one person watching now? No, it's not real. It's fake news. Yeah.
I'm really looking at Donald Trump in this because Joe Biden just has to stay steady and keep doing what he's doing. The question for me is, can Donald Trump
Well,
do something different? Can he get out of the
let's meet that. How long we got? We got a little bit of time. We don't have much time.
We have literally 46 seconds. It is almost time. It's amazing. Like, I'm watching the stream here, and I'm watching the stream.
I'm playing the national anthem. Please. be
I'm
quiet.
playing our. Okay.
I can't stop now. I have to keep it going.
I feel like it's not even playing.
No, it's
Just saying
definitely
this.
playing.
Okay.
Thank you. You may talk.
University in Nashville, where President Trump and Vice President
unmuted.
Biden
This is
will
starting.
take the stage for 90 minutes
Yeah, we're
and
good.
take questions from moderator Kristen Welker of NBC News. Just 12 days to go in this election, almost 50 million Americans have already voted, a sign of the times, in a presidential race transformed by the
What?
pandemic.
Wait, now they
and a
fixed
sign
it.
of
You
how
fixed the audio just
engaged
now, but you
Americans
had
are
you had double
in
audio
this
for a
race.
second.
I know for a split
Also, a
second
warning
there.
sign for President Trump. He's behind in the
Okay.
national polls right now and the key battleground states. The pool of undecided voters is shrinking by the day. He's got to do something tonight to shake up this race.
Wow.
Our Chief
Is
White
that
House
Who is
correspondent
that?
John Carl is on
that
the scene in
Stephanopoulos?
Nashville.
And George, when the
That's-
president
that
is
is, I
behind,
believe.
he goes on the attack. I
Do I
expect that
do I
is
even
what will
know
happen
anybody
here.
anymore? I
I
don't
think he
even know
will
these
go
people.
after Joe Biden in very personal ways, going after his family.
Look at this guy probably standing
going
by
after his son
himself wearing a
Hunter Biden's
mask.
business dealings, regardless
He's-
of whether or
he's
not there are
just-
any questions
I don't know what he's
that
doing.
lead him in that direction. I think
It's all
he
for
will do
show
that. Now,
at
George,
that
the
point.
president complains bitterly about
I
the
mean,
fact
there could be
that
someone
the
around him,
microphone will be
but who's-
muted for some
but
of the answers. For some
who's
of this.
that close?
But his
Is 6
advisors
foot? I
actually
mean,
think that
camera
will
guy
be
could be
good
that
for
close,
the
I
I don't
guess.
know.
What they really want to come out of this debate is for Joe Biden to make a mistake. And they believe that that is more likely to happen if the president isn't constantly interrupting him.
Right, they
Okay,
want to let Joe Biden talk
these
and see
guys,
what happens if that happens. Mary Bruce, what is the
these guys
Biden
have
team prepared
opinions.
for?
This isn't any fair and
Joe
balanced
Biden's goal
news.
here tonight really
Oh,
is
yeah.
just to stay the course. He needs to avoid any big missteps. He needs to
Yeah.
avoid
Oh, man.
giving the president
This is
any
exciting.
big openings here. He
I love
knows
debates.
that Donald Trump is going to come after him with personal attacks against him and his family. They are braced for the fact that this debate could get ugly. And
Wonder
Joe Biden
why.
is going
This isn't
to push
Ru-
back against personal attacks.
This
but he really
this
doesn't
Hunter
want to get
stuff
into the
isn't
mud
Russian
with the president.
information
That is easier
anymore.
said
This is
than
like
done.
verified
Instead,
by the actual
Joe Biden's
people
goal here is
on
really
the
to stay
email
laser
chains,
focused
by
on
the
president's
FBI
handling of this
themselves,
pandemic and
who
to try and
acquired
solve
his
this
laptop
directly
a
to the
year ago
American people. So
as part of
when
a
Trump comes after him, Biden is
money
going to-
laundering
this isn't about his family.
investigation.
This is about
Right.
your
This
family
isn't
and what
this
voters are
isn't
looking
some
for in their next president.
this
But
some
Mary Biden has admitted he lost his
fake
temper
news
more than he
Russia.
wanted to at the last debate.
Yeah,
This
there's
is-
actually
is
some
the-
evidence
This is the
to
New
back
New
this up
York
this time.
Post. This is every major network covering it at this point. And if Joe Biden tries to push all of
Well,
this,
they're not really covering it. They should be covering it, but
Right.
they're. I mean, at this point, it's worthy of covering. They recognize it. They know it.
The debate is about to begin, as we said.
Howdy.
Kristen Welker of NBC News. 6 big topics
anyway,
on the agenda
I don't want
tonight,
him to bring it up. I don't want him to dwell on this though, because it is, at the end of the day, at this point in the investigation, I think mostly still about Hunter.
All right, they're going to the moderator now.
All right, here she is.
See what they
Good
have to say.
evening from Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right
Yeah.
now, as we
That
welcome
always
to the
works.
This is the
stage
same-
former Vice President Joe Biden and
Except
President
right now.
Donald J. Trump.
Oh, we know he doesn't have a mask. Oh, he's taking his mask off. What?
He held the mask from the
Outside.
way.
And I do
Oh,
want to say a
attention.
very good evening.
All
to
Biden can
both
do to
of
not
you.
go
This
sniff her
debate
hair.
We'll cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have
Oh,
expired.
look at him. He's smiling.
After
He's
that,
so happy.
those microphones will remain on.
He thinks
but
he's
on
got
behalf
this.
of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you.
Oh, of course,
The country
coronavirus.
is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000
are they in
Americans
Tennessee?
have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military.
I want to know who's naming these operations.
I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it.
Yeah.
And I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune. Whether it's 4 months or a lifetime, nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and particular ventilators,
where are my goggles?
We're now making ventilators
grab my Speedo.
all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world.
I'm ready to go
it will
for a
go
dip.
Away, and as I say,
what are the chances that if Biden wins, the Democrats immediately give him coronavirus?
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you.
I mean, Kamala Harris is the dream.
I know. That's what they want.
20,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight,
you got that number right.
Hear this: anyone who's responsible for
He's
not
looking at his
taking
teleprompter.
control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not.
Why does it look like
remain
he's
as
reading
President
something?
of the United States of America.
He didn't want to shut down
We're in
China.
a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, as the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives.
People are. They're
and we're in a
mandated everywhere.
circumstance where the president thus far and still has
you can't go to Walmart without it.
And it's still
no
spreading.
comprehensive plan.
What
I would do is make sure we have.
There was a study in Europe that said 85% of all new cases are spread in the home, and like 4% are at activities or out in public.
Yeah.
It's spreading from person to person and in small knit, tight circles of people.
Probably from people going to schools or wherever, and then like the kids get it and they bring it home, and
then those are the new cases. It's not being
and then
spread at schools or at
right.
At least in Europe.
The way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
President Trump, I'd like to follow up with you in your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Oh, this is new information?
Guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, because this is new information.
It's not that new. It's not new information. None of this is.
It could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get
widespread
vaccinated.
distribution.
And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics, and this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go. As soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans
Wow.
say they would definitely agree to take a
She didn't
coronavirus
hammer
vaccine
him like I
if
thought.
it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all
Needs to
the
be
processes.
transparent.
And by the
This
way,
is what's happening.
this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter.
Trump isn't developing this. He's not like over there like pouring chemicals together trying to create a vaccine. These are like companies. These are like medical research facilities, giant labs doing this. Research is being done.
Right.
It's not Trump.
Up our country, we've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe, but China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And frankly, he ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now, but it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his
He's not
chief of
wrong.
staff,
This is.
said
Come on.
it was catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
My response is he is xenophobic, but not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that.
You guys were
In
busy
addition
trying to
that,
impeach
what
him.
he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was we started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump, your reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like.
He said, don't let it ruin your lives.
They want to
basically, or
shut
don't
down
let it
the
control your
economy.
life.
The ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement.
He just
or in a
implied the
beautiful
Hunter
room
Biden
in the
thing
White
right
House
there.
and go away for a year and a half until it disappears. I can't do that.
We can't do that.
Because
American economy can't do that.
Every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous, and you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals, and now I recovered. 99.9% of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though. You have
respond to that.
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
Number one, he says that we're learning to live with it.
It's new to her because she hasn't been paying attention to anything that's been going on for the last. They've only been focused on Trump is bad.
That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch out of habit where their wife or husband is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he has never said it's dangerous.
I know.
When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still?
You reach over and you try and smell your wife's hair.
What do you think about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
She's not there.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And you know what? It's not Joe's fault that he came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say?
He stopped travel
said,
from
worry.
Europe.
It's going to go away.
And China.
Be gone by Easter. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Warm weather.
There
Don't
was,
worry. Maybe inject
when we
bullets.
only had a
He said
few
he was kidding
cases.
when he said that. A lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000.
He's not interrupting them, though, which is good.
This is
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. It just, Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You certainly did. You certainly did.
I talked about a xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought I shouldn't have closed the border.
Well,
that's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President Biden? Okay. Let's talk about your different strategies.
I don't want to respond to that because he's right.
Vice President, you suggested
he's got me there.
I can't.
What do you say
Please
to
move
Americans
on.
who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure?
Are we really
to the
eating
virus?
popcorn right now? You didn't tell me to make popcorn.
It's entertainment, man.
Not the country. It's
Should've
his
got popcorn.
ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap in his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
Nancy Pelosi shut those conversations down.
Oh, well, no, I'm not shutting down the name, but there are, look.
I'll shut down on January 17th.
The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up. More social distancing.
You're not shutting down today because you can't. You don't have the power to.
Do not open gymnasiums. Do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods.
Why do they need money to open?
He's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about schools. President Trump,
I think we have to respond, if I might.
Please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him.
She seems like a better moderator.
She's actually doing a really good job right now.
Look at what's going on in California. You look at Pennsylvania.
Letting them
North
respond to each
Carolina.
other.
Democrats all, they're shut down so tight, and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people. I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus
That was their
spike.
decision.
What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small. But I want to open the schools. We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country.
He's actually having a lot of talking
this.
time.
We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Simply not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely
you got to start practicing, dude.
But they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another.
Have you been anywhere?
You need to be in a position where you can
This already exists.
Testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
What was that? I will say this. If you go and look at what's happened to New York,
what was he doing there?
Town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass,
he just told teachers to not be afraid because they're not going to die.
These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does.
But they were also
blue states and red states.
They just let everybody die so that the curve would down.
Such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what about...
When you say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed, and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We
Personal
have to
experience.
and we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems
and Biden knows.
Diabetes problems. And
he was just at that cookout.
We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony. But he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words. Here's his exact words. This is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving.
H2O.
It's a dangerous
water out of a mug.
I
thought about doing that.
Yeah, why not?
Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it.
I have.
You have raised a lot of money, tremendous amounts of money. And every time you raise money, deals are made, I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America.
What's he doing?
I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that, like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money.
This is a dumb hill to die on.
In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able.
All right, gentlemen,
It's
we're
true.
going to move on.
Average contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China's been involved to some degree, and now we learned that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American
Wait, Russia will pay a price? The very same Russia that you guys sold uranium to?
Said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's talking a lot. I don't think he said a word.
They're really terrible people.
Said a word to Putin about it, and I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken
or whoever it was.
with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks: we are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president
That's a good quote. They know I know them and they know me.
He's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question. You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term
I wouldn't call it
to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part. As
apparently running Facebook ads is substantial.
Yeah, and that amount of traffic that saw those.
Very friendly with the
It's such a small
amount. And it was the mayor of Moscow's wife, and you got $3.5 million.
It's also the internet, so
he's
bringing this up.
Someday you're going to have to explain why did you get 3.5. I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that, and through John Ratcliffe, who is fantastic, DNI, he said the one thing that's common to both of them.
The Rudy Giuliani.
They both want you to lose because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra
Joe Biden is horrible on foreign policy.
Yeah.
It's proven.
Because Obama was bad on foreign policy. That's where he learned from.
On foreign policy, and his
to Ukraine.
Why do you think we had ISIS and Russia and North Korea all threatening to attack us in 2015? Like the same year. Trump comes in, you don't hear that anymore.
During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening. And it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it?
Right here.
Somebody just
Set
had
him
a
up.
news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family. But what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Vice President Biden, you may respond.
They muted his mic.
And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China.
That was a Bill
as
Clinton.
secret bank account
I have
with
not
China,
taken
does business
Bill Clinton
in
answer.
China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not
immediately
taken a
deflects
single
back to
penny
Trump.
from any country
Clearly.
whatsoever, ever.
This is-
number one. Number two,
Look what he's saying.
Whatsoever,
Mr.
ever?
President, I have released all of my tax returns.
Holy
22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay?
He used to
They
push
said,
back
"Sir,
on the
you
fact that he didn't really
prepaid
answer.
Tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax.
Why doesn't he ask what that money was? If it wasn't, if you didn't take that money, then who got then
because at some
who
point
benefited
they
from
think
that?
it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody
tell you
told
when
you
you
that.
released
Excuse
them?
me. And it wasn't written. Whenever
I
they
hate
write
this
they keep talking
conversation.
about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me
He
just
loves
tell you,
getting into
I
this.
prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes. Number one. Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine. You do. I don't make money from Russia. You made
do.
$3.5 million, Joe.
And that's-
your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know. Maybe you're not. But you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions
I have
about
to
all of this,
respond to
but I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just
Please
said
do
you spoke
respond to
your
that.
accountant
Yes.
about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you
As
have
soon
a
as the audit is
deadline for
finished.
when you're going to release them
I
to the
get
American
treated
people?
worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because
you
I have a
don't
lot
have
of
a time.
people in there, deep down in the IRS, they treat me horribly. We made a deal, it was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been
What do you
saying
mean?
for
He's
4
showing you right
years you're
now.
gonna release your taxes. Nobody knows,
I mean,
Mr.
would you
President. What they do
Oh.
know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying
Well, he just
taxes
showed
that are
evidence that
so
you're getting
low. When last
kickbacks.
time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay
Right.
that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system.
Right. You've been in 40. You've been in office for. You've been in part of government for like
and then I
the
wanna
last
get to two
50,
questions to
47
both of
years.
you.
I was put through a
Do something
phony
about
witch
it.
hunt for 3
That was
years.
on their playbook, guaranteed.
It
They said if he
started
brings up Hunter
before I
Biden,
even got
you talk
elected.
about
tax
They spied on
returns.
my campaign.
You talk about his tax returns
No president
automatically.
should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller
rather than answer the
and
question.
18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong. Because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken, I mean, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And and they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions
This is much
about
more
the work your
entertaining
son
than
has
the last
done
one,
in
for
China
sure.
and
Yeah.
for a Ukrainian energy company when
like
you were
it.
vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With regard to Ukraine,
Is it a big deal?
we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong.
Take out your
Yet
notes.
every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing, number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had.
He's
the
made
only
money
guy who made
in
money from China is this guy.
He did deny the Ukraine.
In all
though.
the other countries,
Nobody
though.
else has made money from China.
Never
President
to
Trump,
deal with
let me
China.
let me
By the
ask
way,
my question to you.
But
and
could
then
I just
you'll-
one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that. And he didn't have a job. As soon as he became vice president, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world.
What? Yeah,
I hear
no
they pay him
energy experience.
$183,000
Yeah.
a month. Listen to this. 183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the vice president
That's
respond to that quickly, and then I need to get to a
dishonest.
question to you. Very
No
quickly,
basis
Mr.
for
Vice
that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is
Yeah,
for
it's
you.
just
Since
really
you took
unethical.
office, you've
Might
never
not be
divested
criminal,
from your business. You've
but it's-
personally promoted your properties
He
abroad.
used you
A
for
report
gain.
this week,
Yes.
which was referenced, does indicate
Which
that
is
your
not
company
cool.
has a bank account
Which is-
in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank
He's a
accounts, and
businessman.
they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business.
Yeah.
The bank account you're
Yeah.
referring to, which is
I could do
is
this
listed.
debate.
The bank account was in
Greg, we should set up a mock debate about something.
2013. That's what it was. It was opened in
Apple versus Android.
Apple versus Android. I take a side, you take a side. We have 2-minute segments,
iOS
and we go back and forth. And we
Yeah.
have like a moderator. We have Jim as a
I've been wanting to do this for 4 years.
like Rhett and Link back in the day had this kind of thing going on.
And
So
I
we should.
decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't
We do
like
it.
it. I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice
I'm
president
speaking.
and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president, let alone became president. Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up
Okay,
money
President
every
Trump,
place he
thank you. We
goes.
do need
not
to
true.
move on. I do want to ask you, Vice President Biden, about
That's
China.
the typical
Let's talk
Democrat
about
answer.
China
It's not
more
true.
broadly. There have, of course,
Just saying it's not true
President
doesn't
Trump
make
has
it
said
not
that they
true.
should pay for not being fully transparent in regards to the coronavirus. If you were president, would you make China pay? And please be specific. What would that look like?
What I'd make China do is play by the international rules, not like he has done. He has caused the deficit of China to go up, not down, with China, up, not down. We are making sure that in order to do business in China, you have to give all your intellectual property. You have to have a partner in China. It's 51%. We would not do that at all, number one. Number two, we're in a situation where China would have to play by the rules internationally as well. When I met with Xi, when I was still vice president, he said we're setting up air identification zones in the South China Sea. You can't fly through them. I said we're going to fly through them. We just flew B-52, B-1 bombers through it. We're not going to pay attention. They have to play by the rules. And what's he do? He embraces guys like the thugs like in North Korea and the Chinese president and Putin and others, and he pokes
called
his
the Chinese
finger at
president
all
a
of our
thug?
friends, all of our allies. We make up we're 25%. 25%.
Is that not racist?
Of the world's economy.
No.
We need to be having the rest of our friends
You can call someone
That's
a
right.
with us saying to China, these are the rules.
Nah,
You
if Trump
play
said
by
that, though,
them,
he
you're
could be
gonna pay the
racist.
price for not paying by them economically. That's the way I will run it, and that's what we did in upholding steel tariffs and a range of other things when we were president and vice president.
All right, let's talk about North Korea.
Excuse me, no, I have to respond to that.
Okay, very quickly, and then we're going to move on to North
I have to.
$1.5 from China after spending 10 minutes in office and being in Air Force 2, number one. Number two, there's a very strong email talking about your family wanting to make $10 million a year for introductions.
President Trump, on China policy, though, what specifically are you going to do? What specifically are you going to do to make China pay? You've said you're going to make them pay.
China is paying. They're paying billions and billions of dollars. I just gave $28 billion.
New sanctions?
I just gave $28 billion to our farmers.
Taxpayers' money.
It's what?
Taxpayers' money. Didn't come from China.
You know the taxpayer is, it's called China. China paid $28 billion, and you know what they did to pay it, Joe? They devalued their currency, and they also paid up. And you know who got the money? Our farmers, our great farmers, because they were targeted. You never charged them anything. Also, I charged them 25% on dumped steel because they were killing our steel industry. We were not going to have a steel industry.
Okay.
And now we have a steel industry.
Vice
She's
President
interrupting
Biden,
him.
your
She
response,
asked, what are you going to do?
Response is, look,
Yeah.
this
she
isn't
interrupts
about,
She is a little bit.
there's a reason why he's
Yeah, it's tiny bit.
bringing up all this malarkey. There's a reason
Oh,
for it.
there we go.
He doesn't want
There
to
we
talk
go.
about
Get your bingo cards out, people.
It's not about his family and my family.
Oh,
It's about your
some of us are
family.
playing bingo, some of us
And your
playing drinking
family's
games.
hurting badly. If you're
I have
making
nothing to
less than, if you're a middle-class
But a
family,
solid
I drink all
H2O.
water.
you're getting hurt
Yeah, it's some
badly
H2O.
right now.
Cheers.
You're sitting at
Malarkey.
the kitchen table this morning deciding, well, we can't get new tires, they're bald because we have to wait another month or so.
I need new
Or we're
tires.
going to be able to pay the mortgage. Or who's going to
I
tell her
don't.
she can't go back to community college?
What brand should I
They're
get?
the decisions you're making.
Michelin's.
In the middle-class families like I grew up in Scranton and Claymont.
Good
They're
stuff.
in trouble. We should be talking about your families, but that's the last thing he wants to talk about.
I want
That is a
to talk
typical
about
statement.
North Korea.
Excuse me, just
I do
for
want
1
to turn
second,
to
please.
10 seconds, Mr. President.
That's
10
a
seconds.
typical political statement. Let's get off this China thing, and then he looks, the family, around the table, everything. Just a typical politician when I see that.
Let's talk
I'm
about
not
North
a typical
Korea now.
politician.
Okay,
That's why I got elected.
Let's
get off the subject of China. Let's talk around sitting around the table.
All right.
Come on, Joe, you can do better.
We're going to talk about North Korea now. President Trump, you've met
Hit
with
him,
North
hit him.
Korean leader Kim Jong-un 3 times.
Not
You've
too hard.
talked about
He's
your
elderly.
beautiful letters with him. You've touted the fact that there hasn't been a war or a long-range
Yeah, not too hard or we'll have
missile
Kamala
test.
as
And yet
president.
North Korea recently rolled out its biggest ever intercontinental
true,
ballistic
though.
missile and continues to
You gotta be
develop
careful.
its nuclear arsenal. Do you see that as a betrayal of the relationship you forged? Just 30 seconds here because we need to get on to the next.
So when I met with Barack Obama, we sat in the White House right at the beginning, had a great conversation. It was supposed to be 15 minutes, and it was well over an hour. He said the biggest problem we have with North Korea. He indicated we will be in a war with North Korea.
I don't
Guess
like
what?
Trump on North Korea.
It would be a nuclear war, and he does have plenty of nuclear capability.
I do.
In the meantime, I have a very good relationship with him.
I don't like
Different
that.
kind of a guy, but he probably thinks the same thing about me. We have a different kind of a relationship. We have a very good relationship.
I mean, he
and there's no war.
did a-
And, you know,
There is no war.
about-
Kind of peace
2 months
agreement.
ago,
I mean, that's-
he
I mean-
broke into a certain area. They said, "Oh, there's going to be trouble." I said, "No, they're not."
They were threatening to
because he's
strike
not
us
gonna do that."
Actually,
when
And
he
I
was
right.
president, so-
Look,
Yeah.
instead of being in a war where
You think
millions
about
of
that.
people
He went in
sold,
the
you know, is
first
25
year
miles
and talked
away.
to him.
Right.
Millions
Or
and
second year.
millions, 32 million people in Seoul. Millions of people
haven't
would
started
be
a war.
dead right now.
President
We
Trump,
don't have
Exactly.
a war.
I
think it's the
Have a
first
good
president who
relationship.
hasn't.
Vice President Biden, to you, North Korea conducted 4 nuclear tests under the Obama administration. Why do you think you would be able to rein in this persistent threat right
Because I'd make it clear, which we were making clear to China, they had to be part of the deal. Because here's I made it clear, and as a spokesperson of the administration when I went to China, that they said, "Why are you moving your missile defense up so close? Why are you moving more forces here? Why are you continuing to do military maneuvers with South Korea?"
He's starting to fall apart.
I said, because
His
North Korea
brain
is a
battery is
problem.
already spent.
Look at the
And
ticker.
We're going to
Look at the
continue to
ticker.
do it so we can control them. We're going to make sure we can control them and make sure they cannot hurt us. And so if you want to do something about it, step up and help. If not, it's going to continue. What has he done? He's legitimized North Korea. He's talked about his good buddy, who's a thug, and he talks about how we're better off. And they have much more capable missiles, able to reach U.S. territory much more easily than ever did before.
Let me follow up with you, Vice President Biden. you've said you wouldn't meet with Kim Jong-un without preconditions.
Should just
Are there
follow
any
up with
conditions
Biden
under which you
on
would meet
Biden.
with him?
On the condition that he would agree that he would be drawing down his nuclear capacity.
Just like
to
the
get
Iran deal.
The Korean Peninsula should
That
be a
worked.
nuclear-free zone.
All right,
Yeah.
let's move on to
They have
American
no-
families.
They tried.
They have
Very
no
quickly,
good
10
track
seconds,
record
They
on
President.
foreign
tried to
policy.
meet with him. He wouldn't do it. He didn't like
Bring it up. Bring up
Obama.
the
He
Iran
didn't
deal
like
right
him.
now.
He wouldn't do it.
Okay,
I know
I gotta
for
give him a
fact they
chance to
tried.
respond to that
He
before we
wouldn't
move
do
on.
it.
You
And
know,
that's
I-
okay. You know what? North Korea, we're not in a war. We have a good relationship. You know, people don't understand. Having a good
President
relationship
Trump,
with
we have
leaders
to
of
move
other
on, because
countries
we have
is
a lot
a
of
good thing.
we have a lot of questions
Yeah.
to get to.
Yes, not
That's
Your
like
response.
saying we had a good relationship with Hitler before he, in fact, invaded Europe, the rest of Europe. Come on. The reason he would not meet with President Obama is because President Obama said, we're going to talk about denuclearization. We're not going to legitimize
How'd
you.
that
We're going to
work?
continue to put stronger and stronger sanctions on you. That's why he wouldn't meet with us.
All right,
And it
let's
didn't
move
happen.
on. Let's
Excuse
move on
me.
and talk
He
about
left
American
me a
families.
mess, Kristen.
President Trump. Okay, we do
They
need to move
left
on.
me a mess. North Korea was a mess.
We
And in
need to
fact,
move
if
on
you
so that
remember
we
the
can get
first
to all
2 or
of our
3
other
months,
questions tonight,
there was a
President
very
Trump.
dangerous period in my first 3 months before we sort of worked things out a little bit.
Okay.
There was a they left us a mess. And Obama would be, I think, the first to say it was the single biggest problem he thought that our country.
Okay, let's move on to American families and the economy.
Yep.
One of the issues that's most important to them is health care, as you both know. Today, there was a key vote on a new Supreme Court Justice, Amy Coney Barrett, and health care is at the center of her confirmation fight. Over 20 million
Is it,
Americans
though?
get their health insurance through the Affordable Care Act. It's headed to the Supreme Court, and your administration, Mr. President, is advocating for the court to overturn it. If the Supreme Court does overturn that law, those 20 million Americans could lose their health insurance almost overnight. So what would you do if those people have their health insurance taken away? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. First of all, I've already done something that nobody thought was possible. Through the legislature, I terminated the individual mandate. That is the worst part of Obamacare, as we call it. The individual mandate where you have to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. I terminated. It's gone. Now it's in court because Obamacare is no good.
The
But then I
Terminator.
made a decision. Run it as well as you can to my people, great people. Run it as well as you can. I could have gone the other route and made everybody very unhappy. They ran it. Premiums are down. Everything's down. Here's the problem. No matter how well you run it, it's no good. What we'd like to do is terminate it. We have the individual mandate done. I don't know that it's going to work. If we don't win, we will have to run it, and we'll have Obamacare, but it'll be better run. But it no longer is Obamacare, because without the individual mandate, it's much different. Pre-existing conditions will always stay. What I would like to do is a much better health care, much better, will always protect people with pre-existing. So I'd like to terminate
That's
Obamacare,
the only line
come
they
up
can
with
go
a
after.
brand new, beautiful health care. The Democrats
And it's
will
not
do
true.
it because there'll be tremendous pressure on them, and we might even have the House by that time, and I think we're going to win the House, okay? You'll see, but I think we're going to win the House. But come up with a better health care, always protecting people with pre-existing conditions. And one thing very important, we have 180 million people out there that have great private health care, far more than we're talking about with Obamacare. Joe Biden is going to terminate all of those policies. These are people that love their health care, people that have been successful, middle-income people, been successful. They have 180 million plans, 180 million people, families. Under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine, he won't even have a choice. They want to terminate 180 million plans. We have done an incredible job on health care, and we're going to do even better.
Okay,
Let me
Vice
respond.
President Biden, yes, this is for you. Your health care
really cut
plan
his
calls
mic.
for
Wow.
building on Obamacare. So my question is, what is your plan if the law is ruled unconstitutional by the Supreme Court? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
What I'm going to do is pass Obamacare with a public option. It'll become Biden care. The public option is an option that says that if you, in
Biden-care.
fact, do not have
Biden
the
care.
wherewithal to be, if you qualify for Medicaid and you do not have the wherewithal in your state to get Medicaid, you automatically are enrolled, providing competition for insurance companies.
Biden
That's what's
cares
gonna
the name
happen.
of his
Secondly,
nursing home he's
we're
going to be in.
Make sure we reduce the premiums and reduce drug prices by making sure that there's competition that doesn't exist now, by allowing the Medicare to negotiate drug prices with the insurance companies. Thirdly, the idea that I want to eliminate private insurance. The reason why I had such a fight with 20 candidates for the nomination was I support private insurance. That's why I didn't. Not one single person with private insurance would lose their insurance under my plan, nor did they under Obamacare. They did not lose their insurance unless they chose they wanted to go to something else. Lastly, we're going to make sure we're in a situation that we actually protect pre-existing. There's no way he can protect pre-existing conditions. None, zero. You can't do it in the ether. He's been talking about this for a long time. He's never come up with a plan. I guess we're going to get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we get the infrastructure plan that we've been waiting for.
Maybe we'll get the pre-existing condition plan the same time we find out you're packing the court plan.
Still a few more minutes. I know you're getting anxious. The fact is
there's been a thing they voted on 3 times
that the American people, because of this terrible handling of the COVID virus and the economic spillover, 10 million people have lost their private insurance. And he wants to take away 22 million more people who have it under Obamacare, and over 110 million people with pre-existing conditions, and all the people from COVID are going to have pre-existing conditions. What are they going to do?
They've signed an amendment
for you, Vice President Biden. It relates to
guaranteeing
something that President Trump said. He's accusing you of wanting socialized medicine.
Pre-existing conditions 3 times
who have concerns
in the
that your
last
health care
couple
plan,
months,
which includes a government insurance option, takes the country one step closer to a health care system run entirely by the government? What's your response to
it's
them?
ridiculous. It's like saying that, the idea that the fact that there's a public option that people can choose, that makes it a socialist plan. Look, the difference between the president, I think health care is not a privilege, it's a right. Everyone should have the right to have affordable health care. And I am very proud of my plan. It's gotten endorsed by all the major labor unions, as well as a whole range of other people who, in fact, are concerned in the medical field. This is something that's going to save people's lives, and this is going to give some people an opportunity to have health care for their children. How many of you home are worried and rolling around in bed tonight wondering what in God's name you're going to do if you get sick? Because you've lost your home insurance, your health insurance, your company's gone under. We have to provide health insurance for people at an affordable rate, and that's what I do.
President Trump,
Excuse me, he was there
response.
for 47 years. He didn't do it. He was now there as vice president for 8 years, and it's not like it was 25 years ago. It was 3 3/4. It was just a little while ago, right? Less than 4 years ago. He didn't do anything. He didn't do it. He wants socialized medicine, and it's not that he wants it. His vice president, I mean, she is
keep going,
more
keep going, keep
liberal
going.
than Bernie
Keep
Sanders
going.
and wants it even more. Bernie
Yes.
Sanders wants it. The Democrats want it. You're going to have socialized medicine, just like you went with fracking. We're not going to have fracking. We're going to stop fracking. We're going to stop fracking. Then he goes to Pennsylvania after he gets a nomination, where he got very lucky to get it. And he goes to Pennsylvania,
This is good.
and he says, oh, we're going to have fracking.
This is good.
And
This
you
is
never
good.
asked that question. And by the way, so far, I respect very much the way you're handling this, I have to say.
By the way.
But somebody should ask the question. He goes for a year. There will be
We
no
have
fracking. There
we
will
do
be
have
no
a number of topics
No,
we're
no,
going
but
to get
that's a
to.
big- that's a big question.
We're going to get to. We're going to get to.
It's the same thing with socialized
I have to
medicine.
respond.
Vice President, your response, please.
My response is people deserve to have affordable health care, period.
And I'm not going to give it to you.
And the
because
Biden care proposal will, in
been
fact,
through this
provide
already.
for that affordable health care.
Yeah.
Lower premiums. What we're going to
And
do
that
is
didn't work
going
out
to
that
cost some
well.
money. It's going to cost over $750 billion.
Yeah, how is he
over
going to
10
do
years
anything
to do
different
it.
than he did
And they're gonna have lower
4 years
premiums,
ago?
buying
He had
better
8 years to
plans,
do
the
things.
cheaper plans,
It's like we
lower your
forgot how
premiums, deal
awful,
with
how many people lost their health
unexpected
insurance from
billing,
Obamacare,
and have your
how their rates,
drug
their
prices drop
premiums went up
significantly. He keeps
400%.
talking
So
about it. He hasn't
high,
done
yeah.
a
Like
thing
you have
for anybody
short-term
on
memory
healthcare.
here
Not a
is
thing.
Kristen, when
Very
he
quickly,
says,
then I want to talk
when
about
he
what's
says
happening on
public
Capitol
option,
Hill.
he's talking about socialized medicine, and when he and healthcare. When he talks about a public option, he's talking about destroying your Medicare, totally destroyed, and destroying your Social Security, and this whole country will come down. You know, Bernie Sanders tried it in his state. He tried it in his state. His governor was a very liberal governor. They wanted to make it work.
Okay, let's let Vice President Biden respond.
It doesn't
Vice
work.
President
He's
Biden,
a very
your
confused
response.
guy. He thinks he's running against somebody else. He's running against Joe Biden.
Ooh.
I beat all those other people because I disagreed with them. Joe Biden he's running against. And the idea that we're in a situation that they're
Joe
going to
Biden doesn't even know who he's running
wants
against.
Joe
Biden doesn't even know he's running for president.
If in fact,
It's the Harris-Biden administration. It's the administration along with.
withhold the tax on
But they're running for
Social
Senate.
Security,
It's the Harris
Social Security
administration
will
with
be
Joe Biden.
bankrupt in by 2023 with no way to make up for it. This is the guy who's tried to cut Medicare. So I mean, the idea that Donald Trump is lecturing me on Social Security and Medicare? Come on.
Come on, man.
He tried to hurt Social Security years ago. Years ago. Go back and look at the records. He tried to hurt Social Security years ago.
All right, let's move on. I'm going to move on. Mr. President, I have to move on to the next question.
They say the stock market will boom if I'm elected. If he's elected, the stock market will crash.
Okay, let's move on to the next question very quickly.
Look, the idea that the stock market is
Let's move on.
booming is his
Let's
only
move on,
measure
Trump.
of
Let's
what's
move on,
happening.
Trump. Oh,
Where
go
I
ahead,
come
Joe
from in
Biden.
Scranton and Claymont, the people don't live off of the stock market. Just in the last three years during this crisis, the billionaires in this country made, according to the Wall Street, $700 billion more. $700 billion more, because that's his only measure. What happens to the ordinary people out there? What
done well,
happens
too.
to them?
Let's talk about what's happening on Capitol Hill. We're going to move on,
401ks are through the roof.
We're going to move on.
Stock are through the roof.
All right.
And
I'm
he
up
doesn't come from
probably
Scranton.
a similar
That's
percentage.
Like he lived there for a short
like,
period of time before.
They're making money
he
because they have
We're gonna
money.
move on to the next
left. And the
question.
people of Pennsylvania
Let me
will
move
show
on
you
to my
that.
next question,
They
gentlemen.
understand.
As of tonight, more than 12 million people are out of work, and as of tonight, 8 million more Americans have fallen into poverty, and more families are going hungry every day. Those hit hardest are women and people of color. They see Washington fighting over a relief bill. Mr. President, why haven't you been able to get them the help they need? 30
Pelosi's
seconds
been
here.
shutting it
Because
down.
Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve it. I do.
But you're the president.
I do, but I still have to get. Unfortunately, that's one of the reasons I think we're going to take over the House because of
check
her.
and balance.
Nancy Pelosi doesn't want to approve anything because she'd love to have some
They act like the
victories.
president
She
it
wants
controls
city
everything.
On a date
bailouts.
called November 3rd.
She wants
Nancy
bailouts
Pelosi
for
does
these
not want to
Democrat-run
approve it.
cities
We are
all
already
in
willing and able to do something.
bill.
Don't forget, we've already approved 3 plans, and it's gone through, including the Democrats, in all fairness. This one she doesn't want. It's near the election because she thinks it helps her politically. I think it hurts her politically.
All right, Mr. Vice President, let
The Republican leader in the United
2 minutes?
States Senate said he can't pass it. He will not be able to pass it. He does not have Republican votes. Why isn't he talking to his Republican friends?
me follow up with you, Vice President
we made a
Biden,
deal, the
because
Republicans
let me
will
ask
pass
Vice President Biden a question. You are the leader of the Democratic Party. Why have you not pushed the Democrats to get a deal for the American people?
Unfortunate.
And they have pushed it. Look,
Or it's
they
fortunate.
passed this act all the way back in the beginning of the summer.
Whatever side you're on.
This is like it's not new. It's been out there. This HEROES Act has been sitting there.
He just yells at people
And
whenever
look at
they
what's
push him on
happening.
something.
When I
Come
was
on,
in charge of
man.
the Recovery Act with $800
You
billion,
don't get it.
I was able to get
Malarkey.
We're doing this.
$145 billion to local communities that have to balance their budgets and states that have to balance their budgets, so then have to fire firefighters, teachers, first responders, law enforcement officers, so they can keep their cities and counties running. He will not support that. They have not done a thing for them. And Mitch McConnell said, let them go bankrupt. Let them go bankrupt. Come on. What's the matter with
bill
these
that was
guys?
passed in the House
Oh,
was
yeah.
a bailout
Tom,
of
super-
badly run, high crime,
Super Democratic ties.
all run by Democrats, cities
I think she's
and
doing
states.
better than Chris Wallace,
It was a way
though.
of getting a lot of money, billions and billions of dollars to these states. It was also a way of
Billions.
getting a lot of money from our people's pockets to people that come into our country illegally. We were going to take care of everything for them. And what that does, and I'd love to do that, I'd love to help them, but what that does, everybody all over the world will start pouring into our country. We can't do it. This was a way of taking care of them. This was a way of spending on things that had nothing to do
Whoa.
with COVID, as per your question. But it was really a big bailout for badly run Democrat cities and states.
All right,
By
I
the way,
want
if
to.
I get elected, I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I'm going to be an American president. I don't see red states and blue
Yeah, you do.
states. What I see
You just
is
called the
Americans,
red states
United
earlier about the
States
coronavirus.
folks.
He did?
Every single state out
Yeah.
there
I think he
finds
did.
himself in trouble.
Yeah, I think
They're
he
gonna
did in the
start
first 5
laying
minutes.
off, whether they're red or blue, cops, firefighters, first responders, because teachers, because they have to balance their budget. And the founders were smart. They allowed the federal government to deficit spend to compensate for the United States of America.
I want to talk about the minimum wage, gentlemen.
Calm
Mr.
down,
Vice
Joe.
President, we are talking a lot about struggling small
He was
businesses
told to emphasize
and
that.
business owners these days. Do you think this is the right time to ask them to raise the minimum wage? You, of course, support a $15 federal minimum wage.
I do, because I think one of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have
He had to look at his
bail them
notes.
out,
Do I
too.
support the federal minimum wage
Bail
increase?
them out now.
I
Those
think I
small
do.
businesses.
I do. Yeah, I do.
6 of them going under. They're not going to be able to make it back. They passed a package that allows us to be able to call PPP. Money is supposed to go to help them do everything from organize how they can deal with their businesses being open safely. Schools, how they can make classrooms smaller, how they can hire more teachers, how they can put ventilation systems in. They need the help. The businesses as well as the schools need the help. But these guys will not help them. Is not giving them any of the money.
We are going to move on to immigration,
one thing very
but I
quickly,
want
he
to
said
get
we
your
have to help our
reaction.
small businesses by raising the minimum wage. That's not helping. I think it should be a state
exactly.
option.
Yeah.
Alabama is different than New York. New York is different from Vermont. Every state is different. It should be a state option.
You said very
we have
recently.
to help. It's very important. We have to help our small businesses. How are you helping your small businesses when you're forcing wages? What's going to happen, and what's been proven to happen, is when you do that, these small businesses fire many of their employees.
You said
Not true. Yeah, it is true.
Raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. You said recently
That
you
happened in
consider
Seattle,
raising
right?
the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is that still the case?
And I would consider it to an extent, but
In a
what I
second
really
administration?
like, in a second administration, but not to a level that's going to put all these businesses out of business. It should be a state option. Look, I've lived in different places. I know different places. They're all different. Some places, $15 is not so bad. In other places, other states, $15 would be
Okay, President
ruinous.
Trump, thank you. Quick response, Vice President
Biden.
Can't be at the federal level.
One job, be below poverty. People are making $6, $7, $8 an hour. These first responders, we all clap for as they come down the street because they've allowed us to make it. What's happening? They deserve a minimum wage of $15. Anything below that puts you below the poverty level. And there
Who's he
is no
saying is
evidence
making
that when you
15?
raise the minimum wage,
He said people are making $5, $6, $7 an hour. The federal minimum wage is already $7.25.
We're going to talk
If anybody's
about
making 5 or 6, they're
gentlemen, and we're going to talk
Are they
about
allowed to make that?
families within this
There's
context.
maybe
Mr.
some
President,
exceptions
your
in a couple
administration
states.
separated children from their parents at the border. At least 4,000
It's far and
kids.
few
You've
between
since
now, for
reversed
sure.
your zero
Not-
tolerance policy, but the United States can't
There's some
locate
other
the parents of
revenue
more than 500
and income
children.
baked
So
into
how
that.
will these families ever be reunited?
Children are brought here by coyotes and lots of bad people, cartels, and they're brought here, and they used to use them to get
Coyotes.
into our country. We now have as strong
I don't know what that
as we've
means.
Is this
ever
like
had.
a
We're over
Jungle Book
400
situation?
miles of brand new wall. You see the numbers. And we let
They write it
people
on
in that
coyotes.
have to come in
Yeah, I
legally,
mean-
and they come in through
But
merit.
how will you
But let
reunite
me
these
just tell
kids
you,
with
I wanna
their
see this
families,
Disney movie.
Mr.
they
President?
built cages. You know, they used to say, I built the cages. And
I don't
then
know
they
what
had
the
a
song
picture
is.
in a
It's not Bare
certain
Necessities, though.
newspaper.
No,
And it was
the
a picture of
coyote.
these horrible cages. And they said, look at these cages. President Trump built them. And
Coyote
that was determined
Necessities?
They were built.
No, it
In
doesn't have the same ring to
2014.
it.
That was him.
Do you
They
have a
built
plan to
cages.
reunite
Coyote
the kids
babies.
Yes,
with
we're
their
working on
families?
it we're
Coyote
trying
kids.
very hard. But a lot of these kids come out without
Coyote
their parents.
kid.
They come over through
Instead of
cartels
Karate
and
Kid.
through coyotes
It's the
and through
Coyote Kid.
gangs.
Vice President Biden, let me bring you into this
525.
conversation. Quick response, and then another question to you.
These 500 plus kids came with parents. They separated them at the border to make it a disincentive to come to begin with.
Coyote human smuggler
They real
across the
tough.
Mexican
We're
border.
really strong. And guess what?
Guess what? You shouldn't be coming to this
country.
country.
Coyotes didn't bring them
You shouldn't
over.
be dragging
Their
your kids
parents
across a
were
border
with them. They got
where-
separated from their parents. And it makes us a laughing stock and violates every notion of who we are as a nation.
Yeah,
Let me
keep
ask you a
doing
final
business
question.
They
with.
did it. We changed the policy.
Your response
they
to
did
that?
it.
We
We
did
changed
not
They built the
separate
cages.
they-
Who built the cages, Joe?
Let's
Obama
talk about
administration.
what we're
Who built the
talking about.
cages,
Let's
Joe?
talk about what we're talking about.
Yeah, he won't
what
say it.
happened? Parents were
were around in the
their
Obama
kids were ripped
administration.
from their arms and separated. And now they cannot find over 500 of sets of those parents, and those kids are alone. Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go. It's criminal. It's criminal.
Let me ask
Kristen,
you
I will
about
say this.
immigration.
They went
10
down. We
seconds, and
brought
then I need to ask
reporters,
you.
everything. They are so well taken care of. They're in facilities that were so clean.
But some
and
of
have
them
gotten
haven't been
such
reunited
But
with
just
their
ask
families.
one question. Who built the cages? I'd love you to ask him that. Who built the cages?
Let me ask about your
Obama.
immigration
She
policy,
switched it.
Mr. Vice
She's
President.
covering for him.
The Obama administration did fail to deliver.
Let me ask about immigration
reform,
policy
which had
instead
been
of-
a key promise.
Oh, we don't want to
during
talk
the
about it anymore. We're
administration.
done.
It also presided
Yeah.
over record deportations as well as family detentions at the border before changing course. So why should voters trust you with an immigration overhaul now?
Because we made a mistake. It took too long to get it right. It took too long to get it right. I'll be president of the
We should
United
trust.
States,
They should
not
trust
vice
us now because
president
we
of the
took too
United
long.
States. And the fact is, I've made it very clear. Within 100 days, I'm going to send to the United States Congress.
Couldn't do it in 8
a
years, so now they should trust me to do it
citizenship for over
in another 4.
11 million undocumented
And I'm not
people.
running for another
And
term.
all of those
you kidding me?
so-called dreamers, those DACA kids, they're going to be immediately certified again to be able to stay in this country and put on a path to citizenship. The idea
If we're not able to do things in our first term, it should be a one-term deal. Obama, 2008
Yeah,
or whenever.
exactly.
Your parents are taking you
And
across
then
the
he
Rio
ran again.
Grande River, and it's illegal. And you say, "Oh no, Mom, leave me here. I'm not going to go with you." They've been here. Many of them are model citizens. Over 20,000 of them are first responders out there taking care of people during this crisis. We owe them. We owe them.
No.
Kristen, he had 8 years to do what he said he was going to do. And I've changed.
He says we
without
did now.
having a specific,
It took too long to do it.
We got rid of
Now he
catch
says
and
we did it.
release. We got rid of a lot of horrible things that they put in and that they lived with. But he had 8 years he was vice president. He did nothing except build cages to keep children in.
Vice President Biden,
Wrong.
your response.
True.
Catch and release. You know what he's talking about there? If in fact you had a family came
Sanctuary
across
cities.
and they were arrested, they in fact were given a date to show up for their hearing.
Yeah, and guess
They were
what? The
released.
percentage of
And guess
people who
what? They
came back.
showed up for
No.
hearing. And this is the first president in the history of the United States of America that's anybody seeking asylum.
For once, I would like to
has
hear
do it in
a
another
Democrat
country.
refute an argument
That's
by
never
giving a
happened
fact
before in America.
back
That's
about
never happened before in America. You
what
come
it
to the
actually
United
is rather than
States
say
and you make
wrong
your
or
case.
false
You
or.
seek asylum based on the following.
I searched this, and all getting is PolitiFact and fact check.
They're sitting in squalor on the other
Which
side
are
of the
biased.
river.
Right.
President Trump, your response,
so
30
important.
seconds, and then we'll move
It
on.
just shows that he has no understanding of immigration or the laws.
2.5
Catch and release
million
is a disaster. A murderer would come in, a rapist
Released.
would come in,
Oh,
very
about a
bad
million
person would
failed to
come
show
in.
up.
We would take their name.
So
we
what
have
is
to
that?
Release them
A
into
million
our
criminals
country. And
who
then you say
don't
they
show
come
up.
back. Less than 1% of the people come back. We have to send ICE out and Border Patrol out to find them. We would say, come back in 2 years, 3 years. We're going to give you a court case. You need
No, I'm
paramedics.
sure
We're
the-
going to give you a court case. When you say they come back, they don't come back, Joe. They never come back. Only the really, I hate to say this, but those with the lowest IQ, they might come back.
Okay,
But they're
President
very,
Trump, let's
very
give
few.
Vice President Biden a chance to respond, and then we're going to move on to the
You don't
next
know the
section.
law,
I mean, it's true.
Vice
If you're in
President
the
Biden, your response.
situation
Right.
like that, you'd have to be dumb to come back.
Right.
Well, check it out. They don't come back.
Check it out.
The hard criminals.
It's like-
I'm sure that's the very small percentage of people who actually show up to court cases. And they're releasing these people.
Go ahead.
All
They're
right.
releasing violent
Let's
criminals.
talk about our next section, which is race in America. And I want to talk about the way Black and brown Americans experience race in this country. Part of that experience is something called the talk. It happens regardless of class and income. Parents who feel they have no choice but to prepare their children for the chance that they could be targeted, including by the police, for no reason other than the color of their skin. Mr. Vice President, in the next 2 minutes, I want you to speak directly to these families. Do you understand why these parents fear for their children?
I do. I do. You know, my daughter is a social worker, and she's written a lot about this. She has her graduate degree from the University of Pennsylvania in social work. And you know, one of the reasons why I ended up working on the east side of Wilmington, Delaware, which is 90% African American, was to learn more about what was going on. What I never had to tell my daughter, if she's pulled over, make sure she puts, for a traffic stop, put both hands on top of the wheel and don't reach for the glove box because someone may shoot you. But a black parent, no matter how wealthy or how poor they are, has to teach their child when you're walking down the street, don't have a hoodie on when you go across the street. Making sure that you, in fact, if you get pulled over, just yes, sir, no, sir, hands on top of the wheel, because you are, in fact, the victim, whether you're a person making child of a $300,000 a year person or someone who's on food stamps. The fact of the matter is there is institutional racism in America. And we have always said, we've never lived up to it, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women are created equal. But guess what? We have never lived up to it, but we've always constantly been moving the needle further and further to inclusion, not exclusion. This is the first president to come along and says that's the end of that. We're not going to do that anymore. We have to provide for economic opportunity,
this is
better
the part
education,
of the debate where he can just say
better
whatever he
health care,
wants.
better access to schooling, better access to opportunity to borrow money to start businesses.
And what do you
All
think
the things
has
we can
happened
do,
over
and
the
I've
last
laid out
3
a clear
years?
plan as to how to do those things. Just to
Until-
give people a shot. It's about
until
accumulating
Corona,
the ability to have wealth as well as it is
lowest-
to be free from
lowest
violence.
unemployment for every race.
President Trump, same question to you, and let me remind you of the question.
Less
I would
people
like
in
you to
poverty
speak
than ever
directly
before.
to these families.
Fewer
Do
amount of
you
people on food
understand
stamps.
why these
Right.
parents fear for their children?
More,
Yes, I
But that's
do.
that's apparently
Wage
racist because they're taking away
Yeah.
benefits
Government,
from
47
minority
years, he
groups.
never did a thing except
Oh,
in
yeah.
No, you're giving them
No,
you're
it's because they got
making
off
them
of this.
independent.
such
Yeah.
harm
Yeah.
to the black community.
It's better.
And they were called,
They have jobs
and he
now.
called them super predators.
Just quote-
and he
quote
said
Kamala.
that. He said it, super
I don't want to say her name
predators.
wrong.
And they have never
Kamala.
lived that down.
Kamala.
1994.
No,
new
that's the wrong
crime
way.
bill,
No, that's the right
super
way.
predators.
Kamala.
Nobody has done more for
That's
the
the wrong
black
way.
community than Donald Trump.
No, it's not Kamala.
And if you look,
It
with
is
the
Kamala.
exception of Abraham Lincoln, possible exception, but the exception
Just
of
vote
Abraham
Harris.
Lincoln, nobody has done what I've done. Criminal justice
I should be
reform. Obama
tweeting from my
and Joe
future
didn't
Joe
do
Biden
it.
account right now.
I don't even think they tried because they had no chance at doing it. They might have wanted to do it, but if you had to see the arms I had to twist to get that done, it was not a pretty picture, and everybody knows it, including some very liberal people that cried in my office. They cried in the Oval Office. 2 weeks later, they're out saying, gee, we have to defeat him. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, opportunity zones with Tim Scott, a great senator from South Carolina. He came in with this incredible idea for opportunity zones. It's one of the most successful programs. People don't talk about it. Tremendous investment is being made. Biggest beneficiary, the black and Hispanic communities, and then historically black colleges and universities. After 3 years of coming to the office, I love some of those guys. They were great. They came into the office and they said, I said, what are you doing? After 3 years, I said, why do you keep coming back? Because we have no funding. I said, you don't have to come back every year. We have to come back because President Obama would never give them long-term funding, and I did. 10-year long-term funding, and I gave them more money than they asked for because they said, I think you need more. And I said, the only bad part about this is I may never see you again because I got very friendly with them, and they like me and I like them. But I saved historically black colleges and universities.
Okay, and we're going to talk about both of your records, but your response to that, Vice
My
President.
response to that is I never, ever said what he accused me of saying. The fact of the matter is, in 2000, though, after the crime bill had been in the law for a while, this is a guy who said, the problem with the crime bill, there's not enough people in jail. There's not enough people in jail. And go on my website, get the quote, the date when he said it.
Go to my
Not
website.
enough people. He talked about marauding gangs,
2020.
young gangs, and the people who were
Joe
going to
at
maraud.
30330.
This guy who in the Central Park
33
Five,
or 330-3033.
he continued to push for
Oh.
making sure that they
Either
got
way,
the
just
death
combine
penalty.
any
None
threes
of
and O's
them
you want, you'll
none
get
of
there.
them were guilty.
We
or
bought
just
them
go
all.
to CNN.com. That's a direct donation. link.
Oh, true.
Granted, he did in fact let 20 people. He commuted 20 people's sentences. We commuted over 1,000 people's sentences. Over 1,000. The very law he's talking about is a law that, in fact, initiated by Barack Obama. And secondly, we're in a situation here where
wow, dude,
the federal prison system
want
was
some-
reduced
you want
by
some truth?
38,000 people under our administration. And
Drop
one of these
some
things we
truth.
should be doing, there should be no minimum mandatories in the law.
I tweet from
That's
my
why I'm
account,
offering $20
I get-
billion
I get
to
60
states
impressions
to change their state laws
after a half
to
hour.
eliminate minimum mandatories.
I
and
tweet
set
from
up
this other
drug
account,
courts. No one should be going to jail because they
Using
have a
the same
drug
hashtags,
problem.
I have
They should be going to
314 in
rehabilitation,
1 minute.
not to jail.
Wow.
We should fundamentally change the
You've been
system,
banned.
and that's what I'm going to do.
But why didn't he do it 4 years ago? Why didn't you do that 4 years ago, even less than that? Why didn't you
I
do it?
am
You were
not-
vice president.
Man, I
You
hate
keep
that.
talking about all
Quality
these things you're
filter
going to
on
do,
Twitter.
and you're going to do this. But you were there just a short time ago, and you guys did nothing.
We did.
You know, Joe, I ran because of you. I ran because of Barack Obama, because you did a poor job. If I thought you did a good job, I would have never run. I would have never run. I ran because of you. I'm looking at you now. You're a politician. I ran because of you.
All right, Vice President Biden, your response to that, and then I do have some questions for both of you.
Well, I tell you what, I hope he does look at me, because what's happening here is, you know who I am, you know who he is, you know his character, you know my character. You know our reputations for
That's
honor
why I
and
won't
telling the
vote for you,
truth.
Joe.
I am anxious to have this race. I am anxious to see this take place. The character of the country is on the ballot. Our character is on the ballot. Look at us closely.
Let me ask some
Excuse me.
Please respond, and then we're going to have
If
follow-up
this stuff is
questions.
true about Russia, Ukraine, China, other countries, Iraq, if this is true, then he's a corrupt politician.
All right.
So don't give me the stuff about how you're this innocent baby. Joe, they're calling you a corrupt politician.
Nobody's
Take a look
President
at the
Trump, I
laptop
want to
from
stay
hell.
on the issue of
Excuse me,
race. We're
take a look
talking
at
about the issue.
laptop from hell.
President Trump, we're
Nobody.
talking about race right now, and I do want to stay on the issue of race. President Trump,
And I
you've
have to respond to that.
Please,
Because, look,
very
there
quickly.
are 50 former national intelligence folks who said that what he's accusing me of is a Russian plan. They have said that this has all the five former heads of the CIA, both parties, say what he's saying is a bunch of garbage. Nobody believes it except his and his good friend Rudy Giuliani.
You mean the laptop is now another Russia hoax? You
That's
gotta be-
exactly
Is
what.
this
That's
where you're
exactly
going?
what.
This
was
is
told.
where he's going. The laptop is Russia,
Yes.
Gentlemen,
Russia.
I want to stay on the issue of race.
You
okay?
have to be kidding. Here we
Mr.
go
President,
again with Russia.
We're going to continue
Boy,
on the issue of race. Mr. President,
believe
you've
that one.
described the Black Lives Matter movement as a symbol of hate. You've shared a video of a man chanting white power to millions of your supporters. You've said that black professional athletes exercising their First Amendment rights should be fired. What do you say to Americans who say that kind of language from a president is contributing to a climate of hate and racial strife?
Well, you have to understand, the first time I ever heard of Black Lives Matter, they were chanting pigs in a blanket, talking about police. Pigs, talking about our police. Pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. I said, that's a horrible thing. And they were marching down the street. And that was my first glimpse of Black Lives Matter. I thought it was a terrible thing. As far as my relationships with all people, I think I have great relationships with all people. I am the least racist person in this room.
Well, what do you say to Americans who are
He's even
concerned by
saying
that rhetoric?
the moderator to everybody
I
else.
don't know what to say. I got criminal justice reform done and prison reform and opportunity zones. I took care of black colleges and universities. I don't know what to say. They can say anything. I mean, they can say anything. It makes me sad because I am the least racist person. I can't even see the audience because it's so dark, but I don't care who's in the audience. I'm the least racist person in this room.
Okay, Vice President Biden, let me ask
gonna
you
quote
very
Abraham
quickly,
Lincoln.
and then I have a follow-up question for you.
Abraham Lincoln here is one of the most racist presidents we've had in modern history.
Did he just call Trump
pours
Abraham
fuel
Lincoln?
on every single racist fire.
He just called Trump Abraham Lincoln.
Wait,
what? He just called him Abraham Lincoln.
Mexican rapist.
He said Abraham
banned
Lincoln here.
Muslims because they're Muslims. He has moved around and made everything worse across the board. He says about the poor boys, last time we were on stage here, he said, I told them to stand down and stand ready. Come on. This guy has a dog whistle about as big as a foghorn.
President Trump, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to respond, and then I have a follow-up.
No, he made a reference
Yeah.
to Abraham Lincoln. Where did that come in? I mean,
You said
where
you're
did that-
Abraham Lincoln.
No, where did that? No.
You said-
I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community.
And I'm saying-
I didn't say I'm Abraham Lincoln. I said not since Abraham Lincoln has anybody done what I've done for the black community. Now, you have done nothing other than the crime bill which put
Oh, God.
tens of thousands of black men, mostly, in jail.
All right, let me,
And you know
let me,
what?
let me
They
ask
remember
Vice
it,
President
because if you
Biden
look
a
at what's
question.
happening with the voting right now,
Let me ask
they
Vice
remember
President
that
Biden
you treated them
about
very, very badly. Just take a look at what's happening out there.
Vice President Biden, let me give you a chance to respond within this context. Crime bills that you supported in the 80s and 90s contributed to the incarceration of tens of thousands of young black men who had small amounts of drugs in their possession. They are sons, they are brothers, they're fathers, they're uncles, whose families are still to this day, some of them suffering the consequences. So speak to those families. Why should they vote for you?
One of the things is that in the 80s, we passed 100%, all 100 senators voted for it, a bill on drugs and how to deal with drugs. It was a mistake. I've been trying to change it since then, particularly the portion on cocaine. That's why I've been arguing that, in fact, we should not send anyone to jail for a pure drug offense. They should be going into treatment across the board. That's what we should be spending money. That's why I set up drug courts, which were never funded by our Republican friends. They should not be going to jail for a drug or an alcohol problem. They should be going into treatment. That's what we've been trying to do. That's what I'm going to get done, because I think maybe the American people have now seen that, in fact, it was a mistake to pass those laws relating to drug. But they were not in the crime bill.
But why didn't he get it done? See, it's all talk, no action with these
Yeah,
politicians.
boom, boom,
Why
boom.
didn't he get it done? That's what I'm going to do when I become president.
That bill
You
was
were vice
how many years
president
ago?
Along with Obama as your president,
years.
your leader, for 8 years.
Yeah.
Why didn't you get it done? You had
That's
8 years
something
to get
I'm
it
sure-
done. Now you're saying you're going to get it done because you're all talk and no action, Jim.
We got a lot of it done. We released
get
38,000.
anything
We got
done.
38,000 prisoners left from the.
You got nothing done.
38,000 prisoners were released from federal prison. There were over 1,000 people who were given clemency. In fact, we're the ones that put in the legislation saying we could look at pattern and practice of police departments and what they were doing, how they were conducting themselves. I could go on.
Shoot them in the
but
leg.
We began the process.
Shoot criminals
We
in the
lost
leg.
election.
That's
why I'm running to win back that election and change his terrible policy.
Abraham Lincoln and Abe Lincoln are trending on Twitter.
Why didn't you do
really?
it in the 8
Yeah.
years, a short time ago? Why didn't you do it? You just said, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this. You put tens of thousands of mostly black young men in prison. Now you're saying you're going to undo that. Why didn't you get it done? You had 8 years with Obama. You know why, Joe? Because you're all talk and no action.
All right, Vice President Biden, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
We had a Republican Congress. That's the answer.
Well, you
Okay.
got to talk them into it, Joe. Sometimes
All right.
you got to talk them into it.
We're going to move on to our next section.
Like I did
which is
with criminal
climate
justice
change.
reform. I had
Okay.
to talk Democrats into it.
Gentlemen,
You did what we
we're running
already
out of
done.
time, so we got to get on to climate change, please.
Biden
You
checks
both
his
have
watch.
very
good. Climate
different
change.
visions on climate change. President Trump, you say that environmental regulations have hurt jobs in the energy sector. Vice President
20 trillion.
Biden, you have said you see addressing
Tear
climate
down the
change
buildings,
as
ban
an
cars by
opportunity to create new jobs.
2040.
For each of you, how would you both combat climate change and support job growth at the same time, starting with you, President Trump?
We're going to
You have
eliminate
2
the
minutes uninterrupted.
greenhouse emissions by
So,
2035.
we have the Trillion Trees program. We have so many different programs.
Energy dependent
I
by
do love the environment,
2050.
But what I want is the cleanest, crystal clear water, the cleanest air. We have the best, lowest number in carbon emissions, which
Yep.
is a big
And it's-
standard
and it's
that
low-
I notice
it's getting
Obama
lower.
goes with all the time. Not Joe. I haven't heard Joe use the term because I'm not sure he knows what it represents or means, but I have heard Obama use it. And we have the best carbon emission numbers that we've had in 35 years under this administration. We are working so well with industry, but here's what we can't do. Look at China, how filthy it is. Look at Russia. Look at India. It's filthy. The air is filthy. The Paris Accord, I took us out because we were going to have to spend trillions of dollars, and we were treated very unfairly. When they put us in there, they did us a great disservice.
Yeah.
They were going to take away our businesses. I will not sacrifice tens of
Biden and
millions of
Obama
jobs,
spent 8 years
thousands and
pandering to other
thousands of
countries,
companies because of
giving
the
them money.
Paris Accord. It was so unfair. China doesn't kick in until 2030. Russia goes back to a low standard, and we kicked in right away. It would have destroyed our businesses. So You ready? We have done an incredible job environmentally. We have the cleanest air, the cleanest water, and the best carbon
Every
emission
company
standards that we've
is
seen in
reducing
many,
their
many
emissions.
years.
Vice President
And we
Biden.
haven't destroyed our industries.
As
President
a
Biden, 2
country,
minutes to you,
everyone's way more aware. We're already
Climate
developing
change,
better
climate warming, the global warming.
better
Climate
strategies
change,
for dealing with the
climate
environment.
warming. That's the new one.
We have a moral obligation to
Yeah.
deal with it. And we're told by all the
And we're
leading
dealing with it.
scientists in the world, we
Just don't
don't
kill
have much
the
time.
economy to do
We're
it.
going to pass the point of no return within the next 8
I
to
thought
10
that
years.
I thought that was
4
2008.
years of this man
When was Florida supposed to be
eliminating
underwater?
all the regulations that were
It's
put in by us
2012, I think.
to clean up the
2011
climate.
No, I thought it was like
to clean
2008,
up,
2006.
To limit the limit of emissions.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
They
I
probably
don't
deleted all
think
those.
the ocean has
We're
risen
gonna be in
in
real
30 years.
trouble. Here's where we have a great opportunity.
I mean,
Probably not
listen,
much.
Was able to get both
my dad lived
all
on the ocean
environmental
on the
organizations
ocean
as well
when
as
he was a kid.
labor, the people worried about jobs.
Right.
to
And that
support
that
my
stream
beaches
is
are still
intact.
there.
The beaches
because
are
what
still
it
there.
does, it will create millions of new good-paying jobs. We're going to invest in, for example, 50,000 charging stations on our highways so that we can own the electric car market of the future. In the meantime, China is doing that. We're going to be in a position where we're going to see to it that
China's
we're
a
going
beacon
to
of-
take 4 million
of
existing
success.
buildings and 2 million existing homes and retrofit them so they don't leak as much energy, saving hundreds of millions of barrels of oil in the process and creating significant number of jobs. And by the way, the whole idea of what this is all going to do, it's going to create millions of jobs, and it's going to clean the environment. Our health,
It's going to create
and
millions
our
of jobs and
are
cost
at stake.
millions of jobs.
That's what's happening.
Yeah, because you're going to have to
And right
raise
now, by the way,
taxes
Wall
and
Street
jobs.
firms
companies will
indicated that
get rid of
my
people.
plan, my plan will in fact create 18.6 million jobs, 7 million more than his.
He's just
This is
basing it
Wall
off of
Street.
something that Wall
And
Street said.
I'll create
Wall
$1
Street says it's
trillion
going to make
more in economic
18 million.
growth than his proposal does. Not on climate, just on the economy.
President Trump, you're
They are muting
Came
mics,
out
though. It's
and said
interesting.
very strongly, $6,500 will be taken away from families under his plan.
Yep,
That his
yep.
plan is an economic disaster.
Yep.
If you look at what he wants to do, you know, if you look at his plan,
Nothing
his
to do with
environmental
climate.
plan, you know who developed it?
AOC.
plus 3. They know nothing about the climate. I mean, she's got a good line of stuff, but she knows nothing about the climate. And they're all hopping through hoops for AOC plus 3. Look, their real plan costs $100 trillion. If we had the best year in the history of our country for 100 years, we would not even come close to a number like that. When he says buildings, they want to take buildings down because they want to make bigger windows into smaller windows. As far as they're concerned, if you had no window, it would be a lovely thing. This is the craziest plan that anybody has ever seen. And this wasn't done by smart people. This wasn't done by anybody. Frankly, I don't even know how it can be good politically. They want to spend $100 trillion. That's their real number. He's trying to say it was 6. It's $100 trillion. They want to knock down buildings and build
All
new
he can do
buildings
is laugh
with
when he
little,
knows
tiny, small
he's right.
windows. I mean, and many other things.
Okay.
And many other things.
Let me have the Vice President
It
respond,
is
and we're running out of
crazy.
time, and we have a lot
And
more
you'll
questions to
destroy
get
our
to.
country.
So let's hear from the Vice
Wow,
President.
we've been going for
I
an
have
hour and a
number
half.
more questions.
I don't know where he comes from. I don't know where he comes up with these numbers.
Queens.
$100 trillion. Give me a break. This plan was, this is plans endorsed by every major environmental group.
Just because they endorse it doesn't mean it's not going to cost $100 trillion.
I know. Just
There
They know
all
the
these major
future
environmental groups are
lies.
crazy.
Future lies
Most
us
times.
being able
Yeah.
to breathe, and they know they're
Sorry,
good
Joe,
jobs in
but
getting us there. And by
a
the
lot of
way,
them are crazy.
the fastest growing industry in America is the electric, solar energy and wind. He thinks wind causes cancer, windmills. It's the fastest growing jobs, and they pay good prevailing wages, $45, $50 an hour. We can grow and we can be cleaner if we go the route I'm proposing.
President
What's
Trump,
on
please
We are
respond, and then I have some
We are
follow-ups.
energy independent for the first time. We don't need all of these countries that we had to fight war over because we needed their energy. We are energy independent. I know more about wind than you do. It's extremely expensive. kills all the birds. It's very intermittent. It's got a lot of problems, and they happen to make the windmills in both Germany and China. And the fumes coming up, if you're a believer in carbon emission, the fumes coming up to make these massive windmills is more than anything that we're talking about with natural gas, which is very clean. One other thing.
Find me a scientist
Solar.
that said that.
I love solar, but solar doesn't quite have it yet. It's not powerful yet to really run our big, beautiful factories that we need to compete with the world. So
False.
It's all a pipe dream. But you know what we'll do? We're going to have the greatest economy in the world. But if you want to kill the economy, get rid of your oil industry.
I must have spaced out when Biden just said poor boys instead of the Proud Boys.
Yeah,
Let me allow Vice President Biden
I missed
to
that.
respond.
Yeah, I missed it too.
Said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did show the tape. Put it on your website. I'll
put it on.
Put it on the website. The fact
I said I showed it last night.
I
Already has it.
Would you rule out banning
Yeah,
fracking?
he has it.
Wait,
Do
the
rule out
fracking
banning
thing?
fracking because the answer we need
Yeah,
trying to run
he's
from
saying to
this
put the
at this
video
point?
up. He doesn't believe it.
industries to transition to get to ultimately.
He's like, all right, I'll put the video up. We
zero
have it.
emissions by
It's probably already on his
2025.
website.
What I will do with fracking over time is make sure that we can capture the emissions from the fracking, capture the emissions from gas. We can do that, and we can do that by investing money in doing it. But it's a transition to that.
I have one more question in this pot, and then
Excuse me,
have.
he was against fracking. He said it. I will show that to you tomorrow. I am against fracking. Until he got the nomination, went to Pennsylvania, then he said, but you know what, Pennsylvania? He'll be against it very soon because his party is totally against it.
Fracking on federal land, I said. No fracking and or oil on
You
federal
said-
land.
Let me ask
you
this
said it a
final
lot of
question
times.
in this section,
Yeah.
and then I want to move on to our final section. President Trump, people of color are much more likely to live near oil refineries and chemical plants. In Texas, there are families who worry the plants near them are making them sick. Your administration has rolled back regulations on these kinds of facilities. Why should these families give you another 4 years in office?
The families that we're talking about are employed heavily, and they're making a lot of money, more money than they've ever made. If you look at the kind of numbers that we produce for Hispanic, for Black, for Asian, it's 9 times greater, the percentage gain, than it was in 3 years, than it was under 8 years of the 2 of them, to put it nicely. 9 times more. Now, somebody lives, I have not heard the numbers or the statistics that you're saying, but they're making a tremendous amount of money economically. We saved it, and I saved it again a number of months ago when oil was crashing because of the pandemic. We saved it. We got, say what you want about relationship, we got Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Russia to cut back, way back. We saved our oil industry, and now it's very vibrant again.
All right.
And everybody has very inexpensive gasoline. Remember
Vice
that.
President Biden, your response, and then we're going to have a final question for both of you.
My response is that those people live on what they call fence lines. He doesn't understand this. They live near chemical plants that, in fact, pollute. Chemical plants and oil plants and refineries that pollute. I used to live near that when I was growing up in Claymont, Delaware. And all the more oil refineries in Marcus Hook and the Delaware River than there is any place, including in Houston at the time. When my mom get in the car and when there was first frost to drive me to school, turn in the windshield,
Oh my
there'd be
goodness.
oil slick in
Was
the window.
oil on your window?
That's why so many people in my state were dying.
That happens just from driving on the roads,
The fact
Joe.
is, those frontline communities, it doesn't matter what you're paying them. It matters how you keep them safe. What do? And you impose restrictions on the pollutions the pollutants coming out of those fence line communities.
Okay, I have one final
Would
question.
he close
It
down
falls-
the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil
By
industry?
the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I will
that's a big
transition.
statement.
It is a big statement
That's a-
because I would stop.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
The oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal, but
That's
you
a
can't
big
do
statement.
that. Well, if you let me finish the statement, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies. He won't give federal
Trump's
subsidies
loving this
to
right now
the-
'cause he's-
to the gas.
the oil
excuse
companies
me,
will
to the-
hate him for this.
to,
Nobody-
solar and wind.
Yeah.
Why are we giving it to oil industry?
We actually do give
All
it
right.
to solar and wind.
We
And
have
that's
one
maybe the
final
biggest
question.
statement in terms of business. That's the biggest statement.
Okay,
Because
we have
basically
one
what he's
final
saying
question,
is he is
Mr.
going to
President.
destroy the oil industry. Will you remember that, Texas? Will you
Okay.
remember that, Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
Oklahoma?
Vice President Biden, let
Yeah,
me give you
exactly.
10 seconds to respond, and then
Ohio.
I have to get to the final question. Vice President Biden.
He takes
It's not
everything
out of context. You just
but
said you would
point
get rid of the
is,
oil industry.
We have to move toward a net zero emissions. The first place to do that by the year 2035 is in energy production. By 2050, totally.
All right. One
Is he
final
gonna get
question
China
to both
to do
of you.
it?
No, we're finished with
Is
this.
he
We
going
have
to
to
get
move on
China
to
to
our
do it?
final question. We
No,
have to
I'm
move
going
on
to
to our final
rejoin Paris
question.
Accord and make China abide by what they agreed to.
All right, this is about leadership,
They agreed to
gentlemen.
nothing.
And this first question does go to you, President Trump. Imagine this is your inauguration day. What will you say in your address to Americans who did not vote for you? You'll each have 1 minute, starting with you, Mr.
We have to make our country totally successful as it was prior to the plague coming in from China. Now we're rebuilding it, and we're doing record numbers, 11.4 million jobs in a short period of time, et cetera. But I will tell you, go back. Before the plague came in, just before, I was getting calls from people that were not normally people that would call me. They wanted to get together. We had the best black unemployment numbers in the history of our country. Hispanic, women, Asian, people with diplomas, with no diplomas, MIT graduates, #1 in the class. Everybody had the best numbers. And you know what? The other side wanted to get together. They wanted to unify. Success is going to bring us together. We are on the road to success. But I'm cutting taxes, and he wants to raise everybody's taxes, and he wants to put new regulations on everything. He will kill it. If he gets in, you will have a depression, the likes of which you've never seen. Your 401ks will go to hell, and it'll be a very, very sad day for this country.
All right. Vice President Biden, same question to you. What will you say during your inaugural address to Americans who did not vote for you?
I will say,
I'm
an
your
American president.
Red states, blue
I
states
represent
of
all of
America.
you, whether you voted for me or against me.
They're talking about
Sounds like a Dr.
And
Seuss
I'm
book.
going to make sure that you're represented.
Red states,
I'm
blue
gonna give you
states,
hope. We're going to
Biden.
move. We're going to choose science over fiction. We're going to choose hope over fear. We're going to choose
we'll work
to
on it.
move forward because we have enormous opportunities to make things better. We can grow this economy. We can deal with the systemic racism, and at the same
Can't
time,
deal with the
we
racism
can
when you're
make
the source
sure
of it.
that our economy is
Why'd the
being
camera person just
run
move the
and
camera on
moved and
Biden?
motivated by clean energy.
They uncentered
creating
him.
Millions of new jobs.
Yeah, he is
and
awful
that's the
center.
fact. That's what
He's
we're gonna
way
do.
far
And
left.
I'm going to say,
Yeah.
as I
Oh,
said
true.
at the beginning,
Well,
that's what
is
it's looking like on
unraveled
this
here
camera.
is the character of this country: decency, honor, respect, treating people with dignity, making sure that everyone has an even chance. And I'm going to make sure you get that.
I feel
You
like I
haven't
have.
been getting it the last 4 years.
All right.
Thanks for telling me that, Joe.
Thank you both for a very robust hour and a half, a fantastic debate. Really appreciate it. President Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden. Thank you to Belmont University for hosting us
let's
tonight.
get out of here.
And most
You're done.
importantly, thank you to those watching tonight. Election
No
day
problem.
is November 3rd. Don't forget.
No problem.
to
What's her
vote.
name?
Thank you, everyone, and have a great night.
I don't remember her name, but I will say
Starts with an S.
much better
Excellent time that we
than
just
Chris
had.
Wallace. She actually moderated this debate and had better questions, in my opinion, too.
On the stage wearing her mask tonight is two very different visions of how to handle the COVID crisis, how the COVID crisis was handled. For the first 40 minutes or so, it seemed
You did good, Joe.
She matches. Her mask matches her dress.
Yeah, she had somebody make a custom dress, and then she cut the top part of it out for the mask.
That's how it works.
Huh.
Did he just bow?
No, I think
That's what they do in
he's-
China.
He's done that. You know how far down Obama bowed? All right, let's mute them. Final thoughts. What are you thinking? You there?
Yeah.
What do you?
So
we just
right.
witnessed the last debate of the year.
possibly of our lifetimes if Biden gets elected.
I don't want to think that far ahead. No, it won't end our lives. It will just change drastically the way we live them.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean that debate went pretty well. I think for Trump,
I think so too.
I think, I mean, he seemed like the stronger person on that side, but that's just how I felt of it. I'm sure you go to the other side and they're gonna say the opposite, that Biden.
Yeah,
won.
I think
they both had their moments, but
I wonder who the undecided vote, how big it actually is. Who's watching these debates and genuinely doesn't know who they're going to vote for? I want to know, because that's what's swaying the polls. The polls can still like rise and fall drastically.
I think there's still a lot of undecided voters. I think, I mean, if you don't have, you don't follow this along the whole way, you might not have an opinion, or if you're just not really sure, there you may have things you like about both candidates. And that's typically the independents, is that they have stuff they want to pick and choose from each one, and they've got to decide at the last second, which is the more important issue to me. What do I care most about? And I think when it comes to Trump, you've got the policies of, he has better fiscal policies. You're going to be better off financially with Trump. You're not going to have your taxes raised and that sort of thing. I think that's a better thing. And even from a foreign policy standpoint, like we said at the beginning, North Korea, everything else, you don't hear about that stuff with Trump, whereas you did constantly with Biden. So those two issues alone are pretty big, in my opinion, to support Trump. But I mean, on the flip side, there's other issues people like that Biden has, and it really just depends on what is the most important to you. And to me, there's a lot of issues, but aside from the values that I have, I think the other issues that are super important are how does this affect me financially, and how does it affect me in my safety in the country?
Right.
And those are two big issues.
Right. And you know where Biden stands on those issues. Not
you've seen
the riots for months.
Yeah.
And they weren't protests. They started protests, but
Right.
how many of them, what
And
percentage of them ended in violence? And
they're not just riots that started under Trump.
Yeah.
These riots were going on back in, with Baltimore and everywhere else under Obama.
Yeah.
So it's nothing new. This has been a problem, and they didn't fix it in 8 years.
Right.
And to me, in my lifetime and watching presidents, I believe that I don't remember seeing this until Obama became in office. This became more of a thing, and I think he divided America more than Trump has.
Yeah. Sure.
But and I think that's where this started. So
I think I've seen polls. I might have mentioned this before, but polls from the riot zones where riots were happening a lot in downtown areas, and people supported Trump over Biden 2-1. And I wonder what it basically. We just have to decide. If we're trying to predict an election, we have to just.
There's so many
we have to
factors.
Guess who's angrier.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to. I think a lot of these questions were really good for Trump. Energy, where Pennsylvania is the largest, probably the biggest state in terms of deciding state. For the election.
And that was a good thing to end
state.
on.
Yeah, I know.
About that oil thing. Ending on that note, he said, "Hey, look at this: Pennsylvania, Texas, Ohio, all these places.
Right.
This is that he's going to get rid of. He's going to try and get rid of this, and that's your jobs. That's your livelihood. And if that's what you know, and that's what you work in, that's not going to just translate over to electric vehicles or whatever. You're not. That same knowledge is not going to translate.
Right.
So if you have a career built around oil, you're not going to easily just switch over to some other career.
Right. And and I think, imagine if Trump had done similarly in that first debate. What might that have done? I don't know. I just feel like this one was so much better than that last one. It really stands out to me now.
I think the first debate was even still late enough in the race that if you weren't decided then, that debate wasn't going to necessarily sway you completely. Now, early voting's already started, so who knows if that had an effect. But I mean, I still think we've yet to see what's going to happen. I mean, you also have to consider. I was looking at some polls earlier today, and just data points that said Republican voter registration is up in a lot of the swing states.
In Florida, it is up in.
It's up in Florida. It's up in several areas. I think even Ohio, they said. So it's closing in on Democrats. So even though the polls are showing a bigger gap, if you have more Republican registration, maybe it is true that the polls aren't properly polling Republicans, and that independents are going to come through at the last second and say, you know what, we think that
Dude,
that Trump's going to
how many days we
be
have
the better
left?
thing.
13?
We're down to a couple
Something.
weeks here,
Dude,
maybe under 2 weeks.
I absolutely cannot wait to see how this goes.
I think we're at 12 days.
I'm gonna laugh so hard if Trump wins. And you just think about what we're in for in the next 4 years in terms of everything.
I don't know what will happen. Is it going to be the same thing, or are they just going to give up the fact that, you know what, they realize there's nothing that they can do? I mean, is the media going to do the same thing? Because they've been actively working for the last 4 years to make sure he doesn't get reelected this time. Will they care if he's already elected for the 4 years? Will the media change their stance? That I don't know. So it's going to be interesting to see. I feel like I lost you.
Sorry,
and your commentary.
Responding to Jim's status. Anyway, yeah, it's gonna be fun. I think we should wrap this up. I think we should end this now before it drags on too late. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Bottom line, thanks for watching. I think that it was a much better debate than the first couple, and we'll see if it has any effect in the polls, or if not, we'll see on November 3rd.
All right. With that,
thanks for watching, everybody.
Wait, hold up. I'm not gonna do that. All right. Thanks for watching. This has just been Jason and Greg Live, and we will see you guys next time.
Don't forget to vote.
Vote. If you